Ja, willkommen zum ZackZack-Talk. Heute mache es ausnahmsweise mal ich. Das ist eine Aufzeichnung, weil das Gespräch mit Dündar auf Englisch erfolgen wird. Mein Gast war Chefredakteur der Cumhuriyet, auch bei anderen großen türkischen Zeitungen gearbeitet, Bücher geschrieben. Und dann ist ihm das passiert, was jedem guten Journalisten in der Türkei unter Erdogan passiert. Bedrohung, Verhaftung, Verfolgung und dann der Weg nach Deutschland, wo er seit 2016 im Exil lebt. So, und jetzt sind wir miteinander verbunden, beginnen das Gespräch und ich wechsle in meine Nicht-Muttersprache Englisch. From now on, I have to talk in English. Welcome to our ZackZack-Talk.
Thank you, pleasure.
Yeah, it's the first time I talk to a journalist online as a journalist, because I haven't been a journalist for such a long time. I've been for a very long time member of the Austrian Parliament. But it's great to have you here, because I always thought that papers like Cumhuriyet are very, very important papers that show us how much is left of freedom of press in a state like Turkey or in a state like Austria or Germany. And what would you think and consider the situation of freedom of press is at the moment in Turkey and especially in Istanbul?
Unfortunately, I mean, I've been working as a journalist for more than 40 years now, and this is the darkest period of time, not only in my history, but also my country's history, I guess, concerning the freedom of media. Of course, we didn't have a better or fully democratic environment for journalists. We never had something like this. But considerably, of course, it was much better before Erdogan. And when he came to power, he was like promising freedom for all media and all the politicians, all the political infrastructure. But then, starting from the 10th year of his power, he started, kind of poisoning by his power. And first thing he was doing was trying to capture the media power. And he used businessmen close to himself. He pushed them to buy media outlets, and so no need for censorship. He owned the biggest media in Turkey, and he has become the biggest media mogul. And today he's controlling more or less 70% of Turkish media, and the rest is trying to give voice to the voiceless. But the conditions are really hard, and there are lots of journalists in jail, unfortunately.
You see, when I was in Istanbul, when I paid one of my last visits to Istanbul, I paid a visit to Cumhuriyet too. And the building of Cumhuriyet was surrounded by tanks and armed forces and soldiers with submachine guns. And then I wanted to pay another visit to some journalists of Cumhuriyet and some members of parliament in a prison close to Istanbul, west of Istanbul, at the seashore. I was not allowed to enter the prison for sure, but it was very strange. So I think there are two aspects that are very interesting. One aspect is there is an autocratic semi-dictator like Recep Erdogan. And that reminds me very much of the situation in Hungary, Viktor Orban, who does the same thing. But isn't the great difference the use of force, the use of military and secret service force against the freedom of press and against journalists? What makes the difference between Austria-Hungary on one side and Turkey on the other side?
I really don't, I mean, I can't put Hungary in a Western side, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think that the border is the European border. There are borders within Europe, I guess, and I would put Hungary in the side of Turkey, and I would put Cumhuriyet in the side of Europe, So it's more interviewing each other. So it's not easy to compare them as accordingly to European borders. So at the moment, you are right. I mean, Hungary and Turkey has a lot to share, including their autocrats. And I know there are brave journalists fighting there for democracy. So we shouldn't talk about Hungary and Turkey. We should talk about the autocrats of Hungary and Turkey and democrats of Hungary and Turkey. This should be the. Otherwise, isolation like Turkey and Hungary helps us. So there are colleagues there in Hungary, I know, supporting our struggle in Turkey, and we support their struggle. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was there when the paper was surrounded by tanks and bodyguards, etc. Because I mean, if you are defending the truth, you have a price to pay, and the prices in countries like Hungary and Turkey is really high. So you have to protect yourself, and you must be ready any kind of risks surrounding you. And one of the risks, of course, is going to prison if you are lucky enough, if you are not killed.
Yeah, I remember the very strange situation to sit in the building of Cumhuriyet and talking to elderly journalists that didn't know if they were going to jail next day. But they continued their work because they were convinced that their work was of great importance, and I'm convinced too. Let me ask you another question: the role of secret services and especially of MIT. First part of the question is: what's the role of MIT in suppressing freedom of press? And the second question, which is very important for Austria at the moment, and I think for Germany too, is, as far as I can see, and I've been for more than a decade member of the subcommittee for control of secret services in the Austrian parliament, as far as I can see, the role and the aims of the Turkish secret service, MIT, especially towards countries like Austria and Germany, have changed. And their actions and much more aggressive and much more aiming at destabilization of political systems and threatening journalists than it has been some 5 years ago. What could you say about that?
Well, first of all, I would like to talk about the political structure in Turkey, because after Erdogan, with the last 8 years ago, he made a referendum and he changed the constitution and turned Turkey into a kind of party system, one-party system, from a parliamentarian democracy. It's a presidential system, but it's a Turkish type. There was no balances like the parliament, like the media, like the justice, independent justice. So without those mechanisms, it has become a party state. And the party means Erdogan. So it's a one-man system. And that's why the intelligence service is in the service of himself. So it's like serving for the family. And that's the dangerous part. And without the institutions who can control their activities, like parliament, like justice, like media, they are free to do everything. So I was in jail. Why? Because Turkish intelligence service was smuggling arms to a neighboring country. It was an illegal operation, so it was not in their law. So they cannot do this. But publishing that story, they said the story is true, but it was a state secret. So how can I know if there's a state secret? I mean, there's a secret stamp on the documents, or it was just a dirty work that should be kept secret from the public. So as a journalist, of course, now we have a contradiction with the security officials and intelligence service. We are defending the people's right to know, and they are defending the interests of the Erdogan family. So that's the main thing. But they are very strong, of course, and they are using state's power against the people's right to know.
But as far as I have seen in the past, Erdogan used his MIT and his secret services mainly and basically inside Turkey. And that has changed within the last few years. We had the case of Feyyaz Öztürk in Austria, who's an MIT agent and was sent to Vienna to kill a Green member of parliament, a personal friend of mine with Kurdish origins, Turkish Kurdish origins. So what do you know about the threat for let's say independent journalists and the refugees and so on in Germany and Turkey coming from MIT?
I'm also one of the targets of those illegal operations of MIT, unfortunately. And the MIT used to be more a military organization before Erdogan. And when he came to power, he got rid of those generals from the intelligence service, and instead he put his guys into the power of the organization. And since then, he's been using the intelligence service for his political ends. And one of those ends are to get rid of the opponents. So he cleared most of the opponents in Turkey, but some of them, like me, succeeded to go out. So when we got here in exile, we of course start working and as a journalist and trying to compensate the need for information in Turkey. So of course this is something dangerous for him, because I mean he cannot cut the YouTube channels, he cannot cut the social media interaction, and that's why he decided to cut their heads outside Turkey and send intelligence officers. And and it's not a secret thing. They are proud of doing it, and they proudly announced that they brought 80 people, 180 people from other countries to Turkey, kidnapping. And they are proud of kidnapping people. And of course, it's not only kidnapping, but, you know, punishing them where they are. And Austria is one of the examples. There are others in many countries. And you cannot imagine that the troll army is, you know, supporting those illegal operations, and they are proud of punishing people outside Turkey. And that's dangerous, of course. And this last example was in Belarus, for example. I mean, how far they can go. They can even force a plane to land. All those guys are really kind of crazy, and they cannot cope with any criticism and try to punish all the way they can imagine of.
But as far as I am informed, the German services and especially the Austrian services, secret services, know quite a lot about the MIT networks operating in Germany, in Austria, and in other EU countries. So the strange thing is, and we're going to publish some documents within the next weeks on ZackZack, is I think it's possible, and we might be able to prove it. I'm a bit sorry that we will be able to prove it, that there's some secret cooperation between Austrian secret services and MIT. You see, they had Mr. Öztürk, the MIT agent who was sent to kill the Turkish Kurdish MP in Vienna. They held him in custody, and they expelled him weeks before his trial, and he's now somewhere in Africa, where you can reach him on his cell phone, and he tells you the story that the Austrian authorities were not very much interested in what he had to say. So I suppose there are much closer links between Austrian secret services and MIT, and behind MIT and backing MIT in Vienna are Turkish authorities, successful Turkish authorities. Have you any similar experiences in Germany?
First of all, I would like to thank you for the solidarity you've been showing to the MP you are referring to. He's a friend of mine, and this is really so important. This support is really so important for all of us, because once we left someone alone under these circumstances, that would make governments more brave to attack the others. So this solidarity is really essential. But when we talk about solidarity between us, I guess the security services also have kind of solidarity, and they are in an agreement, which don't touch me and I don't touch you, something like this. And especially under the authoritarian rules, the leaders are in contact with each other and they know their languages. But in countries like Germany and Turkey, in countries like Austria and Turkey, as far as I understand, the governments of those countries, who are democratic countries, they don't want to annoy Erdogan, knowing that he has the power to intervene their soil and can kind of create chaos. And this ability of him scares those governments. And the amount of people living in Germany, for example, with Turkish origins, and the Erdogan's impact on them. So I guess German government are really, so far, really afraid of scaring Erdogan. And first, they don't want him to create chaos in the country using the Turkish origin citizens of Germany. And secondly, of course, refugees are under control of Erdogan, and those countries don't want refugees to be sent to Europe. And of course, countries like Austria, Italy, Germany, when Erdogan says, I can open the gates and send the refugees to Europe, they're really scared. And that works so far so good for him. And I guess the deal is, please don't send the refugees, and we will keep a close eye to your aggression.
That might be, but I think the most dangerous development for us in Austria, and I suppose in Germany too, is that Erdogan has changed his tactics in around the year 2011 and started building bridgeheads, aggressive political bridgeheads with ATIP, with some other organizations led by the embassies, led by the MIT residents. And we documented that. We made it very clear in Parliament that there's a new danger arising. So what I personally do not understand is that Austrian and German officials are just watching how Erdogan builds up dangerous bridgeheads of Erdogan aggression amidst our societies. How do you understand that? I think that the threat of a new wave of refugees is not enough. It's part of the explanation. But it's not enough to explain that, because it seems really dangerous.
You tell me. Really, you are more experienced than me, and it's even for me, it's really hard to understand. First of all, there are some people in the government who believe in that this is a democratic country. They can organize their institutions in a democratic sense. And if they are organized in the mosques, this is their right to come together, and their right to be religious, right to believe, etc. Which is nonsense. I mean, we are talking about radicals. We are talking about jihadists, and they know very well. And some of them, romantically think that, okay, if we intervene their rights to believe, that would be, that would be used against us. And this is a democratic country. We should, be different than Erdogan's, etc. So they open the gates for them to organize in the mosques, and there are still they build up hundreds of mosques that they can organize the Erdogan supporters in it. So some of them is they couldn't understand the logic behind this, and for some people who understand very well what's going on, as you mentioned, they know very well what's going on, and it's hard for me to understand why. But the only answer I can find out is they really don't want to annoy Erdogan, and knowing that if they touch those guys, Erdogan would get crazy and do something illogical. Yeah. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I mean, why Germany should, kept a close eye to those organizations? They are armed organizations. They are radicals. They are destroying those countries, including Turkey. So we are trying to fight against them in Turkey, and all of a sudden we found them here, organized very well, and have a free space to get organized.
And parts of them are definitely becoming more and more similar to terrorist organizations. And let's jump over to something quite closely related. You see, part of the Erdogan strategy are the Erdogan media. And if you look at Erdogan's state TV, it's being broadcasted in an ellipse lapping over Austria, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands. That's where the Erdogan state TV is aiming at. And we are here in the 10th district of Vienna with a huge Turkish-based immigration. And if you go into the neighborhood and look into the flats, you will see one Erdogan TV after the other. So yeah. What do democratic societies like ours in Germany and Austria put against that? What are the chances of a project like Özgürüz that you founded to counter that?
You are absolutely right. I mean, that's the main problem. Because, I mean, those TV channels, not only the official ones, I mean, unofficial private TVs are also so aggressive, so nationalist, and dividing people, polarizing people, showing us as enemies. And you can't imagine how destructive they are. And if you spend a couple of hours in front of them, you may believe that Erdogan is the king of the world and everything is fine in Turkey, all the Christians are enemies, etc. So really poisoning people. And we were fighting against them in Turkey, and now I'm afraid we have to fight against them even in exile. So the only possible way to cope with them is to create a free media who can deliver the right news about the country. So that's what we have been trying to do in Özgürüz in Germany, trying to reach our audience from afar as an exile media, but it's not enough. So countries like Germany and Austria should create a space for free media in their own languages. I remember during the military coup time in 1980, I was a journalist, a young journalist then, and we were listening Radio Köln to get, or BBC World Service to get truthful information about our country. So unfortunately, those institutions lost their interest about different countries and languages, and they have a very limited broadcasting time now. But it should be, on the contrary, more visible and watchable from all over the world, so that people can watch and listen the truth about their own country. So now we have an opportunity, because most of the journalists, I mean, there are a lot of journalists or academics living abroad in exile from Turkey, and we can cooperate with our colleagues in everywhere, like in Australia with you, or some colleagues from Germany here. So we should try to find out ways to tell them the truth instead of the governmental lies.
You see, we're definitely in a strange situation. We live in Germany and in Austria, and you have a German-based magazine, a German-based paper is Özgürüz. So, but you are confronted with an overwhelming power of Turkish state media serving Mr. Erdogan in Germany. So is there any support, any public support you get for Özgürüz? Because there must be a German interest that you get stronger.
On the contrary, really, that's the most difficult part. You know why? Because German companies has interest in Turkey, and they have investments, and Erdogan has been punishing them if they support institutions like ours. So they really don't want to get trouble in Turkey. And there are some institutions, their interest is not supporting Erdogan, but they are afraid of Erdogan because, they have institutions there, they have branches, and they don't want to put them in danger and the risk. So supporting us could, endanger their members there. And this is another, for example, Osman Kavala, one of the businessmen who were working with German institutions, who's in jail. And since then, many German institutions are really afraid of supporting any media like us, because they have their branches there and their members can be in danger. And for the Turkish part or the Kurdish, they have, families living in Turkey, and they don't want to put the families in danger. And everyone has an excuse not to support us. So you can find yourself all alone, unfortunately, in this fight.
So the only supporters you can rely on are your readers who make their donations.
Exactly, that's all.
It's the same situation we are in, but I think it's a great prospect too, because there are lots of people we have to reach, and we have to build up our own base. And that's a very reliable base, and that's very different from the base of most of the commercial and traditional papers and TV institutions. So what we can use our final minutes of this talk just to make clear how to support Özgürüz and how to make donations, because I'm convinced you really do need that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really we need that. And nowadays, I can just finish it by talking about our new project, which is a kind of think tank under the Özgürüz umbrella, and we start thinking about the day after. So I guess we are coming to the end of this darkest period of our history, but nobody knows what would happen after Erdogan, because we will have a ruin after him. All the institutions were damaged, and as there are a lot of academics living in Europe now, coming from Turkey, we decided to put all of them together and start working about the reconstruction of Turkey from afar. So that's really very important for the future of Turkey. So we need help and support from our readers and from the democratic face of Turkey, and of course the Democrats in Europe. Very small donations would be really helpful to give us strength and reach our audience, and hopefully to let us go back to Turkey after Erdogan to rebuild a new democratic Turkey.
Yeah, and you should make a short stop in Vienna, and I hope I can tell you that we could stop Mr. Kurz before becoming the Austrian Erdogan. So the only promise I can make you is that after we've finished our talk and we've come so far now, we will make an insert and a link to you, and people can donate, I expect, millions and millions of euros.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and I thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you for your help and support. Thank you, all the best.
Thank you. Bye.